Have you ever been told to do something and your first instinct was just like, nope, I ain't doing it? That's what's happened in today's story with Jonah. Let's get into it.
Got that midweek feeling, need some truth revealing. It's in the word Wednesday, yeah.
Now, Jonah was a prophet from God and had already gone out and told a lot of people about God. But then God gave him the assignment to go to this town called Nineveh. Now, Jonah didn't want to go to Nineveh because Nineveh were the enemies of the Israelites. And honestly, Jonah didn't want God to forgive those people. He didn't want to go preach the message of God and forgiveness and that they could be saved. But ultimately, it wasn't Jonah's decision on whether or not the people are saved. It all comes down to God. But Jonah ran anyway. Instead of going to Nineveh, he jumped on a ship headed to Tarshish, which is literally in the opposite direction of Nineveh. He was trying to get as far away from there as possible. Well, while they were out on this ship, a massive storm came and hit. And all of the sailors on the boat were terrified and were praying and screaming and didn't know what was going on. But Jonah did. Jonah knew that he was part of the reason this storm was happening. And he admitted that to himself and eventually admitted it to the sailors. And he said, hey, look, I'm the reason for this happening. I disobeyed God. If you throw me into the sea, the storm will stop. And so that's exactly what they did. They tossed Jonah overboard into the sea. The storm stopped, but the story wasn't over. For you see, a giant fish came and swallowed Jonah. Now, I want you to notice that I said giant fish. How many of you heard the story of Jonah and the whale when you were a kid? Nowhere in the Bible does it say whale. It just says big fish, giant fish. Important to recognize that. Now, Jonah spent 3 days and 3 nights inside the belly of this big fish. And while he was in there those 3 days, he spent a lot of time praying. Probably not much to do inside the belly of a big fish. And he prayed to God, and ultimately God gave him one more chance. The fish spit him out onto dry land. And once again, God gave him the instruction, go to Nineveh, preach my message. And he did. This time he listened to God. He went to Nineveh and did what he was told. There's 2 things we can learn from this story. Jonah's problem wasn't that he didn't know what God wanted. He knew exactly what God wanted, and he chose to do the opposite. Don't we do that in our life sometimes? We know we should tell the truth. We know we should forgive others. We know we should do something to help people, and yet we oftentimes do the opposite. But the good news is Jonah's story shows us that God doesn't give up on us even when we give up on him. He can still use us to do incredible redeeming things and ultimately to bring people closer to him. The second thing is most people look at him being swallowed by a big fish as a punishment and as a problem. And while that's true, don't you think that God sent the fish to protect Jonah rather than just letting him float away into the ocean? Sometimes God puts us in scenarios where feel like punishment, feel like we shouldn't be there, but sometimes God's using those situations to protect us and to make sure we're getting back on the right path towards him. It's important for us to recognize that we can run from God. We can make all the excuses in the world. We can even mess up really badly, but you can't outrun God's grace. God came looking for Jonah and rescued Jonah and gave him another chance. And he'll do the same for you. So is there something in your life that you know God's been asking you to do and you've been avoiding it? I challenge you to go and do that thing and pray to God about it, and hopefully God will bring you through.